I'm going to go ahead and start. It's wonderful to meet and see everyone here. And maybe if you're joining us for the first time at a Women in Digital event, if you could just drop your name in chat and say first timer or whatever. We want to welcome you. This is about what we do. We are a community of women that look to be inspired and inspire other women as they go about unlocking their potential in a digital field. So we have grown. We started off as a very small community with three incredibly beautiful and strong women who founded our community in 2014. So today we have grown to a community of over 6,000 members. And this is across social channels, across meetup groups. And so we're in Geneva, Zurich, Lausanne, St. Gallen, and Basel. And what we do is we host local meetups, we do digital thought leadership, we bring together communities in different aspects to talk about really what are the digital trends, what are the things that are most relevant for us as a community as we go about practicing our work in the digital fields. So you can see a little bit about the things that we have. So this year we will have, for the most part, webinars and online events, so in different formats, until we know exactly when we can come back and meet in person. We will have an annual conference, which we haven't finalized planning for, but it will be in the fall for this year. We do provide networking opportunities. We do support other associations, and we do increase the visibility of women who come to our association. So we do what we can. And so one event that I want to share with you that's really exciting for us is that we will host a Women's Day event on March 8th. And on that event, we are partnering with Impactia, where we will showcase and release our white paper on growing the presence of women in AI. So this is really exciting. And if you would like to learn more about this, or if you would like to contribute in any way, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I can share with you my details in the chat. So the focus today is to share trends on the digital trends shaping 2021. And so we've got a great lineup of speakers across our chapters who've come together, and they will be sharing with you information um, uh, related to this. I do encourage you to visit us on social media, share your experiences about this webinar, and join the chat in discussion afterwards. Also, the last thing I want to say, just in terms of Women in Digital Switzerland, is I'm going to share with you a link here to answer a short survey questionnaire on how we can better serve you. And these are questions really related to the future of skills needed, as well as mentoring, etc. So it's just a 2-minute survey, and we welcome your feedback on that, especially during the call. So if you can do that during this session, that would be wonderful. So if we could move to the next slide, the first thing I just want to share about digital trends is just a brief introduction. So when we think about the digital trends that shape 2021, it's really important to start with a discussion of how consumer needs have changed. So what are the culture-based needs that emerged in 2020? So we've looked at some of the trend reports, and we've all picked different things that we feel are worth mentioning. So I believe that there are 5 heightened consumer trends that are worth mentioning that really shape consumerism. So the first is connection. So we all know that there was hyper connectivity last year. So we were online for across devices for almost 7 hours a day. So this is the first trend I want to mention. The second is that safety, health, and well-being are hypercritical. So some 59% of consumers across Europe are now more conscious about their overall health, and are eating or planning to eat healthier as a result of that. And if we think about beyond that, there's also the burnout. And there's a lot of brands that are with the average workday increasing to more than 40 minutes a day. You can imagine that the stress or the burnout is also a hyper accelerated need that that has come up as a result of last year. So that also means that escapism is welcome. And so if we think about gaming, consumers spent about 20 billion on mobile games last year. So this was up 5% from in the third quarter compared to earlier in the year. Diversity, inclusion, and trust are critical. So we're in an age of radical transparency. So internal culture, how we work, our brand culture is hypercritical. And so this we've seen for many reasons taking shape last year. And so this is just I guess a global trend summary I wanted to share on consumerism and just my thoughts. So that was the intent of doing the quick introduction. And now I'd like to pass it over to Dafina.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, also from my side, and welcome to our first Lunch and Learn this year. So I'm just gonna start, and this year we have three main topics which we are going to cover for this Lunch and Learn. So as you already have seen within the meetup or within the Lunch and Learn, we have Kelly, we have Priyanka, and we have myself. We're going to speak with different trends, digital trends. Priyanka is going to cover the Generation Z, AI. Then Kelly will go through on different digital transformation trends, and myself, I'm going to share some insights about search engine optimization and user experience. I will be also moderating this session today. So if you have questions during the different talks or different presentations, please do that by commenting, and we will have at the end of the session a Q&A part where you are able to also ask questions in person. So I would say I will hand over to Priyanka. She will first introduce herself and talk about a little bit about her background, and then go into the Generation Z part. So Priyanka, it's your turn.
Hi, thanks, Dafina. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women in Digital. My name's Priyanka Prakash. It's really nice to see so many first-timers here, actually. I reminisce, whenever I see first-timers, I think about when I was a first-timer in Women in Digital. So I joined back in 2019 in March. I'm originally from Australia. I'm a senior data analyst, and I've just finished my master's in data analytics about 3 months ago. So if it wasn't for COVID, I'd be traveling all around Europe right now. So I've had a lot of experience working with survey data as well as administrative data that we collect in the Australian government to help shape policies, specifically social policies. I've taken an akin to Women in Digital when I joined, because I just found there were many like-minded individuals, many women who are really amazing. They're highly qualified. They're working in either digital marketing or other areas of digital transformation. And so since then, I'm still here and contributing very happily in many different ways. And so in terms of for this topic, I guess I wanted to paint a little picture, and this may make you smile. And if you can think about things that have happened to you, experiences you've had, then please do pop them in the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about Generation Z. So let me start off with a little story, actually. So I was back in Australia for 5 weeks. I was on my Christmas break with my husband, and we were just visiting different family members. I was staying with my uncle and aunt, and they have 2 beautiful daughters. So my cousins, one is 10 and the other one is 16. I was just resting after a really big meal. You know what Christmas lunches can be like. And so I was resting a bit in my room, and I headed on over to the living area just to relax and have a chat to my cousins. My youngest cousin, 10 years old, was sitting on the couch with a really thick novel. It was a crime story. And I just have to mention, she's got great taste because I'm like that as well. And right next to her very thick novel was a Samsung Galaxy 10. That's right, she was on her Samsung Galaxy 10 at the age of 10, posting photos, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. And I was just amazed because I'm pretty sure my first phone was a Nokia. It was a little brick that I had since I was 16. So I'm pretty sure there's quite a few of us here who have, in one way or another, met with Generation Z, and that's where I'd like to talk. So Generation Z, who are they? So these are people who have been born between 1998 and 2010, and they are amazing. I mean, you know, I'm really blessed in my family to be surrounded by a lot of Generation Z, and they're very smart individuals. They're very adaptive, and they have from the very beginning of time been connected, engaged with the internet and everything on the internet. They have an impact on everything they do, and they make sure of that. And one of the things that I find really amazing is they even have an impact in playing video games. So you may or may not have heard of Borderlands Science. So Borderlands Science is one of the leading gaming software that is working with medical research to essentially help with the DNA mapping for understanding the human gut psychology. So the aim of this particular game, and this game was actually released by Gearbox, is to connect the colored tiles. Think a little bit like Tetris, but a lot more sophisticated than that. To connect the same colored tiles into rows, and each color represents a different component of our DNA in our genetics. And so this data then feeds into real-world analysis by mapping these microbes, which represent the different components of DNA, so that scientists are able to better understand the human gut and its connection to numerous conditions and diseases. So I'm just going to take a moment here just to share with you the actual Borderlands Science trailer. It's a 3-minute trailer. I won't be able to share it with you right now as we do have some more exciting presentations to go on, but I do encourage you to check it out. I was watching it yesterday, and I'm not a very big gamer, but I have to say, this really was captivating for me. So that's just something to think about. And the other thing, of course, to mention is we know that AI is becoming really, really, I guess, applicable in various aspects in solving real world problems. And so one of the things that this particular gaming is doing is assisting AI in being able to correctly understand the connections of DNA and the impact that can have on medical research. So I'm going to then take the moment now to move on to the next slide, please, which is moving into our next topic, which is for me very interesting about AI and ethical use. So for 2021, there's been a rising demand for ethical AI, and it's one of the top trends for this year. So I want to just ask a question here, and feel free to share your insights in the chat either now or whenever you are able to. What comes to your mind when you think about AI, artificial intelligence, and ethics? Let's just take a couple of moments just to think about this. I guess for me, I'm thinking, and you can see here as well, one of the things is Internet of Things. It's a big topic, it's been talked about, it's been something that's being experimented with widely across many areas in the world. And we're looking at using AI in an ethical manner to help in improving and enhancing the efficiency of the Internet of Things. But I won't be going into what Internet of Things are. I think what's really important is to touch on why this is a trend and what does it actually mean to have ethical use of AI. So what we've been finding is increasingly companies are choosing to commit to working with partners who are using data with customer values at heart, but who are more importantly using data in a very responsible way. Why is this important? If we have, of course, Internet of Things is essentially our digital footprint. So human beings interacting with computers and other devices, data is being collected. Data needs to be collected in a very ethical manner, and it needs to be done with humans well, not necessarily interaction, but more with their understanding and with their approval, in a way you can say. So as technology continues to rapidly advance, there are many concerns about AI and about the data and how it can be ethically used, and more importantly, how it can be protected. So AI is changing the way humans work and interact with each other, and we know that this is going to continue to grow stronger. Of course, there's a lot of concerns. As we can see, there's some things coming up in the chat, absolutely, algorithm bias. There are concerns around job loss. So increasingly, AI is going to be used to replace the kind of work that humans would be doing. There is, of course, wealth inequality, that are bias in AI algorithms and machine learning, as was mentioned here. So then the other question is, and this is something for all of us to think about, who is responsible if AI are making mistakes? Is the AI responsible, the person creating it, or both? Or is it the data, the way it's been collected? Who exactly is responsible? This is a legal, security, privacy, and issue that everybody needs to come across and everybody is thinking about in 2021. And this is why this is one of the top trends for 2021. How can we make sure that AI is being used ethically? So Internet of Things. So we know that's been a part of technological transformation for quite some time now. But now more than ever, we're seeing there's a very dynamic link between human interaction and machine learning algorithms. And this, of course, is why there's a call to action. We need to ensure that the data being collected from IoTs are protected, especially given that human interaction is going to be represented as a digital footprint. So I want to share 3 of the top 10 implementations for data protection that we can do. There are so many more. One of them is, first of all, ethics needs to be imprinted and cultivated in the culture of the company, identifying the legal risks that are associated with breaches to AI and IoT technology. We want people to feel more empowered to conduct business and address and communicate these risks in a transparent manner, even if it means that the business itself is being pressured. Number 2, we want organizations to broaden their metrics of success. That's a huge component of trends for 2021. So it's not just about customer profits or about the functionality of the ecosystem of Internet of Things, but it's more about the health of the user. It's about the efficiency of the ecosystem and the financial benefits. But most importantly, it's about the security of the system. This needs to be considered as a very essential metric if we want to see AI and IoT succeeding together. And third is informed consent. So this is essential for protecting human beings in this ecosystem. Businesses need to take this into account before using our bodies for data collection and earning profits that are coming from AI and IoT connected ecosystems. So they're just our top 3 aspects that I have found in terms of what are some of the rising ethical concerns that we need to think about and consider when looking at building AI with the IoT connection. But before I finish, I just want to end on a final note, and that is security is by far our biggest strength in successful deployment and maintenance of AI and IoT devices, but it's also our greatest weakness. So just as technology advances, so do the complexities of infrastructure and the potential for this infrastructure to be hacked into by malicious sources. And therefore, in my opinion, a very large trend in 2021 is to deal with this specific uncertainty. All right, thank you so much. I think it's really great. Please do keep those comments coming. And I'd like to hand over to you, Dafina. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. So then I will hand over to Kelly, who is next and presenting her part.
Hi, everyone. So thank you. I'm not on video because I seem to have a little bit of a video issue, a little internet issue, but it is wonderful to see you And it is just great to see so many new faces. I agree. I know Priyanka mentioned this, but it is just really, and Karen also, it's just so uplifting. And I really look forward to seeing you all when we can meet in person again. And a little bit to myself, for anyone who's new, my name is Kelly, and I'm a chapter leader in Lausanne. I'm also one of the co-founders of Women in Digital. We started this wonderful community back in 2014, and for me, it very much came out of a need that I just couldn't find communities to connect with like-minded people, and there was a need out there. And I think that it's just amazing to think that now we're 6,000 strong across Switzerland, supporting one another, uplifting one another, and it's really fantastic. So as soon as we can get back together in person, I look forward to meeting you, and I think you're going to have just an amazing experience with your fellow community members in your cities. So following up on a couple of things that both Priyanka and Karen have said, my role today, I've moved from independent marketing consultant to director of digital transformation for an oral care group called Sunstar. And I really have, over the last years, I've really had the privilege of being able to see what's happening on a European scale, as well as worldwide, and really see how some of these trends are impacting businesses. And as we move into 2021, maybe we can go to the next slide, Dafina. Some of the areas that I see that are really stemming from and coming from COVID and last year are definitely an acceleration in many areas. Some of them have been already touched upon by Karen and Priyanka, as well as this, I think it's a renewed obsession on customer everything, as well as a focus on technology adoption. And we know that research is showing from businesses, we've progressed more in the last 5 to 7 months in terms of transformation initiatives and how we live online and how we shop online than we have in the previous 5 years. So we know that consumer habits that are taking place, they're not going away. And I think this is something that companies very much and business owners, even just from the smallest of startups or single being an entrepreneur up to the largest of organizations, things won't ever go back to how they were. There's been a fundamental shift and change. And I think we have to really wrap our minds around that also, that this change has happened, and how do we adapt to that? I think the value and the success of our businesses and companies moving forward will very much rely on this customer obsession, this continued resilience, a lot of creativity and agility, and really our ability to react now. I think technology acceleration, depending on the size of the company, or maybe even regardless of the size of the company, it's going to be really fundamental to how we work in the future, because we have such a wider, broader audience that's online and desires to be connected. So if we think about how we're going to invest, if we move on to the next slide, I really touched 3 areas, and I think technology really helps reinforce all of these. One is authenticity and authentically. I think as we move to use more automation in order to help facilitate our efforts and processes, we have to really focus on that balance between authentic and inauthentic brands and how we use technology. The days of just posting on social media without being deliberate or mindful are really over. People are too attentive to what's happening. So when we automate, we need to be very, very careful about what we're automating, when we automate, is it too much? And technology plays a role in helping us reach that. I think there is absolutely a renewed focus on loyalty and retention that I'm seeing, where acquisition is always important. We know that it's 5 times more expensive. We've known this forever, to acquire a new customer than it is to retain one. And I think even more so today and moving forward, this renewed focus on retention and how we remain loyal to our consumers and they remain loyal to us is going to be really important. And then thirdly, it's just everything customer. I call it 3 C's of customer, and we'll get into that, but it's really about experience, obsession, and behavior. And I think that these 3 C's, these pillars are going to be more and more important to us. And again, it's regardless of the size of the organization you're in. You can be an entrepreneur, really, a solopreneur, and these 3 tenets are very, very important, as important as it is to the chief marketing officer of a really large organization. So let's talk a little bit about authenticity. If we go down to this slide here, I think what we're going to see, and Forrester has a report out, the hyperlink didn't come through, but talking about their bet on 10 companies, really large organizations that could potentially lose billions of dollars by being just tone deaf. And I think that this resonates even more today than in the past because we are spending so much time online. As Karen pointed out in the beginning, our experiences, consumers' experiences due to COVID, they're becoming redefined, and we have kind of rewritten the path of engagement, especially as like social and economic crises kind of peak this year potentially. Consumers today want to support values like environment, local community, gender equality, and we have to balance all of this with price as well, right? So because we trust, we want to engage in these things, we don't expect, we're hoping that companies don't raise the prices in considerably on this. So we have to find that balance. And this is going to be really important. I mean, there's a lot of mistrust out there. There's a lot of disappointment. It's been a really, if you've been following the US for the last years, I mean, it's been an absolute catastrophe on social media. So a lot of people are really, really looking for new beginnings. And I think in Europe, there are a couple of brands that I think are doing a really good job of how they authentically come across, and they're able to combine price and value to differentiate them from the rest. And that's Lidl and Intermarché. So I think if you research those brands and see what they're doing, they give some clues to how they're balancing this to come across as really authentic also, and understand through consumer behavior and what's happening in the world. They're very much shifting their messaging towards that. So I think that it's going to be really a defining year if you aren't in tune with behaviors, and if you're not being a champion for what's important to people, to your consumers, you're going to miss out. And it could very well be not just miss out, but the companies who really embrace these stances in society and stand for what they mean and really work in the best value of their customers and consumers are going to win. The next point that I want to talk about is really loyalty and retention. And I've seen this trend coming. We know that we should always be focusing really on, I call it the people media versus the paid media. But it's really putting your customers and the people at the center of what's happening, of what's important to you, and not worrying so much about the acquisition and the ads. And we know that we need to build that reach and find awareness, but by really focusing on the customers and the people who are most important to you, your brand, your small business, large businesses are going to win. And I think that this is going to see, and we've seen this over the last 7 or 8 months, teams, companies, organizations, they're really putting the customer, the consumer, the person at the strategy of everything they do: leadership, strategy, and operations. And it's really time to reinvent ourselves, our teams, our businesses to have this really obsessive focus on what's happening. I think in the larger organizations, we're going to see a lot further integration of marketing, customer experience, segregating acquisition from everything else. How do we really hone in on the purchasing process? we're going to see a lot of growth come from this. So over the last year, we see, as we have to really talk about how we invest that budget, we need to really know who is purchasing, where, when, these consumer behaviors. And if you're small business owners with, working with your blog and your content, really it's important to understand, how is that content helping you reach your goals? Where do you need to focus your budget in terms of developing more content or more creative content, and really start diving into the data on it and the behavioral aspects. So these areas, along with technology to propel, are going to help us really kind of hone in and focus on the loyalty and retention. And we're going to see companies focus a lot more of their energy and their budget as well on the technology that can help us, personalize is a big word, but personalize content and find that those advantages to help us work on the loyalty and retention. The next slide here, if we go down, I apologize, there was a formatting issue. And those little teeny words down there, it's really my 3 C's. I have to say, I actually sent the wrong deck to Dafina, so it's all my fault. You guys are seeing these small slides there, I fess up. But this is what I call 3 C's. And it's really the customer experience, the customer obsession, and the customer behavior. And these really tie into the last slide. And it's, again, understanding where we are in terms of who is important to us and what is important to us. And it all goes down to our customer. If we're not putting the focus on the experience that we're delivering, we have a problem. If we're not putting a focus and our attention on everything that they do and really meticulously understanding their behavior, we're going to have a growth problem. And I truly believe that when we talk about customer experience, that's a really loaded word. And what does it mean for businesses small and large? It could mean as much as, do less and be more to people. If you're out on 4 channels and you're an entrepreneur, it might be 3 channels too many. Really pick and choose where you are in order to provide the best possible experience where you are. You don't need to be everywhere. You just need to focus on doing one thing really well that derives value, that brings value. And it scales really from the smallest organizations to the largest. But I see over practice and with the organizations that we're working with, the customer experience is so important in driving the actions that we want and really laddering back into that growth and retention of, if the experience is good, and it could be the personalization you give of saying hi on a social channel. It can be that wonderful email that comes to them and the response that you give when they respond back. It can be any experience you design it to be for your customers, but delivering that faithfully and really focusing on doing it well is going to be a big advantage and really separate you from the competition in the future. So I think that those are the areas that I've seen emerge in 2020 and going into 2021. I think that they're just going to be really drilled down again. So if we're looking to focus budget, it's really on the area of be more and do more to the people who matter most to you. And so that's where I wanted to stay there. And the last slide is actually, it's like I said, I didn't have the right deck for you, so we can move on.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think nevertheless, the slides were not 100% perfect. The conversation was very interesting, and I'm looking forward to the questions that the people will have. So then now it's my turn. I'm going to talk about search engine optimization and user experience. So we heard from Kelly a lot about the whole holistic picture about how do you look at the customer experience, for example, and the 3 C's that she mentioned. And I will go down and say, talk about the search engine optimization and user experience and how this is going to be mixed up this year. But first, a little bit some words from me. So I'm Dafina. I'm based in Zurich, and I joined Women in Digital last year. I worked for several companies and switched now to an agency. So I work now for Web Republic, and I'm leading there the user experience team. And I really think that this year is going to be everything about UX and search engine optimization, because you will see then next on the slides why I will focus on this. So I first of all brought some search engine optimization trends, which will be focusing this year. So what I will focus now on the next slides is especially the user experience and the core web vitals and page experience. So this will be more of a hands-on information for you guys because as you all know, within search engine optimization, Google always have their algorithm, and they have a lot of factors. I think that there are over 200. And this year there is going to be a major update from Google. It's going to be in May 2021. So they are going to change their core web vitals and page experience. And what they are going to do is, because they want to have a better web experience or better web for the users. So that's why they are more focusing on how exactly is the user dealing with the website, how useful it is for them. And that's why I will say till now, there was always like a SEO expert or a UX expert, and now you really have to combine those two parts to see what can you take out of it. So think of the partnership of those two main topics. So SEO, for example, targets search engines. So they really look, your users are giving a keyword and they are using something, and they then land on your website where they are looking at the user experience. So user experience targets then your website's visitors. So both of them, they want really to share the best experience for the user. So if we go then to the next point, so I mentioned before, the major topic that is going to happen this year is the Google Core Web Vitals. So what does actually really mean for you, for example, or for your company, or for let's face it, I think for most of the websites that are out there. So that means that they are going to change to make a major update, and that will have an impact on the search engine optimization ranking. So on the organic ranking, actually, when a user or you, for example, search for a key term on a search engine like Google, and the whole organic ranking is there. So this will have an impact on that organic ranking that you had till now. And the update will be in May 2021. I brought you here also a link where you can see more information about the Core Web Vital. But to sum it up, what this is exactly going to affect, or which parts that are going to be affected or looked at it more properly from Google, are the large contentful paint. So this means the time it takes for a page's main content to load. For Google, an ideal LCP, or an overall ideal LCP measurement, is 2.5 seconds or faster. So mention that someone is clicking somewhere, and then when the page is not loading, imagine when you are, for example, buying something online, and you are going through different steps, so through different user flows on your website, and then somehow a lot of people, or I think more than 50% of the people, if the page load is, for example, very low, they will abandon you. So, and then Google now is going to look at those abandonments. So when people are bouncing your website and so on, and then they will, and this metrics will then also impact your Google rankings, your organic Google rankings. The second point will be the first input delay. So the time it takes for a page to become interactive. An ideal measurement is less than 100 milliseconds. So you see also here that it is really important at how fast your page loads, how good people can interact with the different steps on the website. And then the last one will be the cumulative layout shift, so the visual stability, so the amount of unexpected layout shift of visual page content. An ideal measurement is less than 0.1. So I think that those three things combined with each other will then be the best measurement for Google, so that they can decide if your page is really user friendly and is following user experience metrics, and will be then ranked by this metrics. So if I go to the next slide, I really brought you some recommendation, because I think this is more of a hands-on topic, and I think that I wanted you to show what you can do, for example, before May 2021, or which points you can already dig in, or which topics you can already dig in. So the first one from my side is that you really should focusing on all moving parts on your website. So that means from the visual stability and design, image optimization, the JavaScript, and of course, safe browsing. The second one is really all about the user engagement, the bounce rate of your URLs, for example. So, and then also looking at how the user is interacting on the page. So to do so, for example, a high bounce rate is usually a signal that the user did not find that what they were looking for. I think you already have seen some of your analytics on your website, and you always see also that sometimes some pages, for example, on FAQs, on our other product pages, sometimes the bounce rate is really high. So that means actually that probably your users are not finding the right content, or they are actually brought from organic search, or from a different keyword that is not on their search intent. So what you can do there, you can, for example, use Google Analytics or Google Search Console, and pay attention also to the low click-through rate and to the high bounce rate. So look at your page in overall, and look how, for example, the bounce rate is in overall, and then go deeper, dig deeper in, and see, for example, where are the main pain points on your website from this point of view. And then, of course, pay attention to your most important keywords. So this means when you are a e-commerce shop and you are selling shoes, then of course shoes and all the different keywords will be your important one. And especially look there on the user intent. So what is, for example, the user's intent when they are searching for a term? So if I want to buy, for example, shoes, then I will, or boots, then I will look after boots. So is the intent of buying something? And this is one user, and the other user will be, for example, I want to inform myself on how I can keep my shoes properly. So then you have more of an informational intent that the user is searching for. So really, what is the person wants to achieve by typing in a specific word in the search engine? And then Another one will be, for example, that what kind of issues is the user trying to solve? So are there questions, or can you help answer? So can you help them with FAQ pages? Can you help them with also AI and so on? And of course, there is the load performance and quality content combined are really two powerful quality signals that greatly impact the user experience. If you know that you already have experienced problems with your, for example, also loading time, then consult Google Page Speed Insights. And you can see, for example, there how fast your page is, where the problems lie. If you have, for example, too much JavaScript encrypted in your website, if you have too large pictures, for example, and so on and so forth. So those are really my recommendation, to go first and then look at the different parts of it to really make sure that your website is not suffering then, or is not suffering from the core web vitals, which will come then May 2021. If you are interested in more information, of course, please contact me. I'm happy to help. And I think that, yeah, every time Google makes a new update, everybody is very excited or frightened. But I think this is a more or a better way to go through a better web and to also focus more on the user. So I'm really looking forward to this. Yes, this is it from my part. And now I think it's time for your questions. I see that there are some questions. I will check at the beginning, because I know that there were also questions about the customer experience and the or Kelly, did you already answer your questions?
Oh, I just blab in the chat.
Okay.
I'm a real cheerleader.
Okay, good.
No, but Dafina, I think it's great. And I think if you had to, I'll just step in. If you had to categorize for just three, if someone said, okay, I have a limited budget and I'm just me, I'm a solopreneur, I take care of everything myself. What are the top three things that we should focus on my site? Maybe for a commerce site and a non-commerce site, because they're a little bit different, but knowing with your rich background and what's coming, what would you say?
I would say that the page speed is one of the first one that you should focus on, and that was the last thing that I really mentioned. That I said, okay, look, for example, how fast your page is at right now, and where, for example, your biggest problems lie. Sometimes you for what I've seen for very small pages, it's really the images. So they're too large images and not really uploaded. So for really small pages or websites, it is often it is the images. But this is one of the first. And the second one, what I would say, is how mobile friendly your website is. So if you're really looking at your or focusing on mobile first, because this was a buzzword, or it's not a buzzword anymore, I think, but I mean, it was a buzzword years before, and then now it disappeared a little bit. I think some companies are also already having this mobile first approach, but there are tons of that still are looking on the website, that web page, desktop version. And this is something that I see also often. I think there are not three, but I would say those two. If you really consider those two at the beginning, then you will be more safe on not losing the visibility or the organic rank on Google.
I think that's great. And I just dropped into the chat in case not everybody knows of it, but the URL for Google. So they do a quick site check for you. If you drop your URL in there, it's the HTTPS developers Google. And that also gives you exactly what you're talking about. They tell you if you pass or do not pass, the core web vitals. So I think that's just a really handy starting place for organizations of any size. And especially if you work with a larger organization and you know that your website sucks, but nobody's listening to you, you can just like tell them to drop in their URL to this site and it'll shock everybody. And then you'll perk up ears and start getting people thinking.
Yeah, I also linked it on one slide. So, but
perfect.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, it's lovely. That's always fun. Everyone's right now is probably dropping their website and they're like, how am I doing? Oh my God. Right.
Yeah. Good. So let's change to the chat. I think if someone wants to join in and directly ask their questions.
Absolutely. Song has a question.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think so.
Song, hop in.
Where do you? Here, question. In your opinion, what will be trend of UX? Oh, yeah. Well, that is kind of the other one, the other topic that I didn't want to go into detail. But I think the 3D designs will be one of the major topics, and I think also another one which is always going through, but also the thing that Kelly said is more of the combining the whole or the whole holistic customer experience with user experience and the other topics. So I think this will be again one of the main topics. And as I said, 3D designs, and I think also the smiley interaction within the designs will be also something that will cover up. And one of my favorite topics that I don't know if it's listed on whatever trend paper that you have read lately is that I think the social proof aspect will be also a big one. So people recommending to other people. So also other big companies will have to cover that. We see that in the US, actually in the US market a lot, that new brands, for example, they already have this social proof aspect on their website already and shared this user shared content there. So I think this is also one of the main that I think. Yes, and
thank you, Dafina. So there seems to be another really interesting question that has come up, actually. It's all about Google Analytics. Even I myself am quite curious about this. So the question from Mona is, she's a solopreneur and would like to, and has not done customer analytics yet. How can we get started with retention analytics?
I think this is a question with your part, right?
Yeah, it can also be addressed by me, actually.
I think yeah. It's more of your question.
Yeah, I can definitely try and add some of my tips to that. So in terms of customer analytics, I think it first comes to understanding your data. So it's about having a sufficient amount of information available to you. And it begins with knowing what your issue is or what your problem is that you're trying to solve. So if you're looking at a particular customer base, and I think this is something Kelly will also be able to add into, which is knowing your customer behaviors, knowing what they like and knowing their experience. So when you start with that point, the next question I think that's important to ask is to see if you have enough information. So if your customer is, for example, looking at a population that's looking at males and females who are purchasing a particular type of product, let's say that's a specific example. So it's about, first of all, looking at if you've got sufficient information to cover that basis. Because one of the first things that can happen when we're analyzing our data, when we're trying to derive the analytics from there, is that we have an imbalance in the population that we're interested in. So that's just some of my insights on that as well. And I've personally not really used Google Analytics. I've used, I'm actually a programmer by background as well. So I've used a lot of Python, and I've used various types of software like Tableau or, other softwares. But it's not about the software. It's honestly about knowing how to read the analytics. So I think a lot with Google Analytics, which is something that I've heard a lot about and I love, is that you can see graphical displays of what's going on with your data, whether it's a line graph or a bar graph. So I think that's also important to know, how do you read that information that's present in that specific graph or analytics that you're looking at.
So great. I would just jump in and say, and to that analytics is only part of the story, right? So we need qualitative and we need quantitative. We need first-party research and we need that professional research done, but we also need the web analytics, but we also have to marry that with social listening. And social listening can be as much as, as a starting point. Are you on Twitter? Are you searching for keywords? Do you have a software that can help you kind of classify and understand what you believe your consumer base or your target audience is thinking about, as well as just talking to people? And I think a lot of time data shows us one area of maybe what's not working or what is, but what's the other side of that story? And sometimes we just can't get those answers unless we actually go and talk to people. And that's why I think it's, forums like this, communities are a great way to get out and poll people, ask people. It doesn't always have to be this very formal research that's initiated. There are many different touch points, and they're just not always digital touch points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would also say that what we all also do at the agency I'm working is that we really combine those two things. So we look at the Google Analytics data or the analytics data, and you can also, as already Priyanka said, you can read a lot of data there, and you can also implement, for example, an event tracking to see more valuable data on your users' behavior on the website. But it's also very important that you go and observe the user on their real life, or do also quick testings, for example, so that you also have this user-centered approach combined with the data that you can use from different platforms. Yeah, so
there's just one last question I see from Veronica asking about how do you increase? And I would say we're just going through this right now, understanding what converts, understand that journey, and it's either a sales conversion or a marketing conversion. And if you understand what the action needs to be taken and what that journey looks like through acquisition to conversion, then you can understand, how do I increase the overall profit? You increase the overall profit by cutting out some of the stuff that's not working. For one, are you creating the wrong kind of content? Is that image just not working? I mean, I would say go skinny and thin and lean and start with this minimal viable journey and see how people are picking up, and then build it out from there. But a lot of times it's not about the keyword optimization itself on the Google side. It's about understanding, that bounce rate or that content in between when someone comes in and converts. Is it working for you? And that's where a lot of our time and effort goes. And as soon as we have that figured out, then we really start optimizing the ad campaigns, or it's one way to optimize as well.
It's never, I would also agree to that, because it's never on like optimizing just the campaigns. You have really to look also where where the user do land then after they click on the ad, and this is a really important part as well. So it's already 1 o'clock.
Time flies.
Time flies, really. Yeah, I think that there are no questions left. Everybody's saying thank you. I would say thank you also from our side. The presentation will be shared with you. I think that you will get the link or the document. And please also feel free to contact us if you really have more questions, or do you want to have more insights on the topics that we have presented. And I'm pretty looking forward to the next Lunch and Learns, but also I hope finally this year we can also have a physical event and we can cheer to each other. Yeah, I think thank you very much, and I wish you all a happy week and a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.